we're starting to see right around 1.5 million people a year walk through our doors. So for 50 years, we have been putting Bible stories on stage. Now, a lot of times when the average person thinks about a Bible story on stage, they think, bathrobes and shower curtains and Satan's.
and fake babies, yeah.
It's very immersive. When you're at Sight and Sound, you feel like you're part of the story. We have over 900 employees. Every single one is incredible, creative, amazing, and capable. So there is a bazillion things we could do, but we don't want to do just what's good. We want to do what is God.
Hey, welcome to the Faithustle podcast. I am so excited for today's conversation. Every week, we bring on Christian entrepreneurs, content creators, builders, leaders who have built their businesses, their careers, God's way. And I am so excited for today's episode. This one is a long one in the making. I have someone who my family I've known for almost 20 years, and they have literally changed the world, impacted millions of people around the world through their live performances of bringing the Bible to life. Literally millions of people come and see these performances every single year. And now they have gone into the big screens and the movies and have impacted people all across the country. It's incredible what can happen with just a small obedience with one step. And I'm excited for us to get into this conversation. If you are a big dreamer and you want to make an impact, this is the episode for you to lean into. So without further ado, I have Kim Miller from Sight and Sound.
I'm Maquenda. This is so exciting to be with you today.
I love it. I am so grateful that we are getting opportunity to do this. I was doing the math. I literally, because I said almost 20 years, but it was actually true because we started going to the same church. I was 12, which is
Wow.
wild, and I'll be 30 this summer. And so yeah, it's been that long that our families have known each other, and my dad prays with your husband all the time and has done trips and just done a lot of life. And I'll never forget like a core memory I have is I believe your dad, who started Sight and Sound, was in the hospital, and he came to pray for him. And I think whatever was happening, your dad said, okay, you never have to pay for another ticket in your life to Sight and Sound. and he was just like, no, you'll never have to pay another ticket. And he's stuck to his word all these years. And we've gotten to bless family members and close friends, people who are going through kind of rough times. We'll just kind of bless them with tickets to hey, just go and get inspired at Sight and Sound. But I'm just grateful that we now get to do this all these years later.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Maquenda. Yeah, we love your dad and your mom, and and actually, a little side note, they are part of our intercessory prayer team here at Sight and Sound. We have a group of 12 people. They're not employed, but they have a passion to pray for our ministry. So I get to see them regularly, and they have been a humongous blessing to this ministry. We believe everything we have done and still do is founded on prayer. And so having people that just have such a passion, just like the other day, I reached out to the prayer team with a need for our upcoming movie, and I just know they're right on it. So it is just such an encouragement. So we do have some great history, and I'm thrilled to be with you today.
Absolutely. No, it's and I know that they love that honor and that role, and even their names are in the credits of the movies too at the end, which is he loves. And he's like Maquenda, you got to watch this movie. Go to the end, you'll see my name. And no, I know they mean a lot to you all, and vice versa. But I'd love for those. Now I try to tell as many people as I can about Sight and Sound, and it's one of those things that literally no pun intended, you got to taste and see. You just have to you can try to explain it as best as you can, but you have to be there in person just to kind of get a good idea of what it is. But for those that don't know, how would you describe what Sight and Sound is? And what makes it so unique?
Yeah. Well, for 50 years, actually, yeah, quick side note, this year is our 50th year anniversary of ministry.
Really?
Pretty wild. Yeah. So for 50 years, we have been putting Bible stories on stage. Now, a lot of times when, the average person thinks about a Bible story on stage, they think, bathrobes and shower curtains and Satan's
and fake babies, yeah.
is not that. It is hard to describe, but I guess I'll try. It's very immersive. When you're in Sight and Sound, you feel like you're part of the story. And some of that is because we have what we call a immersive wraparound stage, 300 feet of stage that literally wraps around the guest as they're sitting in the theater. We have sets that are 3 to 4 stories high. We have
My gosh.
some of the most professional actors that, in my opinion, on the planet. We do everything that we do with a spirit of excellence that is just, I think in many ways, Sight and Sound leads the charge in excellence, even in the world. I don't like to compare, but many, many, many times we're told you supersede anything on Broadway, which is always a great compliment. That's not our goal. We're not in any competition. But we believe as Christians and believers, we are called to do things with crazy excellence.
Amen.
And so everything we've ever done and continue to do is done with excellence. It's done in a way that anyone that's coming in, if they're, used to seeing things from Disney, if they're used to seeing things on Broadway, I don't think they're going to be disappointed. And so that's part of it. But the biggest part is our heart behind it. Those are the logistics and those are the things that, draw people in some ways. But I believe what really, really draws people in is what they're going to glean when they're here. And that is truth. That is answers to life. That is, we live in some ways, a very dark world. And our goal is to spread the light and the love of Jesus. And I would venture to say no one leaves our theater unchanged. There is something that while they are here, I believe the Lord will minister to them and bring an answer, bring hope, bring reconciliation. And truly, that is the core of why we do what we do. And then when we do it in pretty big ways.
I love it. I love it. And I can concur. I've probably been to now, oh my goodness, I'd say, the amount of times I've been there is probably a dozen, but I've definitely seen like well more than 8 shows, I would say. I've seen The Miracle of Christmas, Daniel, Noah, like the list goes on and on, Moses, Joseph. Literally they're bringing these Bible stories to life, and then you guys weave in the gospel through every story.
Right.
And there's always an altar call or a place for people to come and get prayer at the end, which I just think is amazing. And I love to even talk about, like, you guys have these, there's live animals, like there's zebras, there's and they're trained. Like, you guys, I don't even know how you do it, but you train these animals to, like, on cue, go to different spots and horses and all this different stuff.
Treats.
That's what does it. Yeah, just give them food and they'll obey. But yeah, all these birds, and they'll be flying everywhere, and it's all this just beautiful display, like you said, excellence. Where it's like, I haven't been to a lot of Broadway shows, but I've never been to a show that even compares to Sight and Sound of anywhere in the world. But again, like you said, it's beautiful display, the acting, the singing, but it's not just about that. And it's moments where people can encounter God. I think the last time I went, someone had it was like a whole bus of people. They're like, yeah, we drove from Boston. And I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, they drove like 10 hours just to experience it. It's powerful. What are some of the testimonies that come from it? Because again, people are so impacted by it, and you have moments where they can come and get prayer right after the show. What are some of some of your favorite stories over the years?
Yeah, wow, what a loaded question. Well, I'll say, you talked about someone driving from Boston. I think I am just humbled regularly because I participate in our after show prayer time. And it is just a very, very regular occurrence where someone will come up for prayer, or maybe they just want to come up and talk, and they'll tell me that they just flew from literally halfway across the world. And I'll be thinking, oh, well, obviously you had to come for a family wedding, or, and why area you'll take this. No, most times they say, oh, we just came to see this show. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Wow.
It is just so humbling. Yeah, so one story talking about people from all over the world that just was emailed to us last year. This was just such a profound story. There was a group that came. I believe they might all live in the States at this point in time, but literally, they are from all over the world. And there was this fairly large group that came. And the thing that made it super interesting was very few of them came from Christian backgrounds. I mean, it was Muslim, it was, all kinds of religions converging together and came to see the show of Noah. And the group leader afterwards decided to send us a very lengthy email. It was just so beautiful about the impact of that day. And it was mind-blowing as we read this email, because they went on to share that these people, some were brand new believers, some weren't quite believers, some had so many questions about the Christian faith. On and on it went. And they bulleted out how the show of Noah impacted all these people. And you just sit there and you kind of like, wow, Lord, I don't know. It's you feel overcome,
Yeah.
how so many answers were given that day. One person made a decision to follow Jesus.
Wow.
Some were new believers and said, wow, this just stirred me in my faith. On and on it went. And I do want to share one story that probably, I've told this story so many times, but it's because it just is one of my favorites. When we think about Jesus and him being on earth, we see and know that many times he stood on the hillside and he spoke to the masses. But Maquenda, more times than not, he dealt with an individual, one person at a time, right? So this was about me with one person. And it was through the run of David here in Lancaster. David, a little glip for people that may want to know, David is in Branson right now this year. So if you want to see David, head to Branson, Missouri. But it was when it was here in Lancaster. And I was on prayer team that day. And this little elderly lady came walking toward me. And I would guess she was in her 80s, maybe even her 90s. And as she walked towards me, I could just tell she was just heavy laden and she was broken. And she came up to me and said, I want to tell you something that I've really never shared with at least very few people. She said, first of all, my husband just died. But what I want to tell you is that almost our entire married life, I was unfaithful to him. She said, I even had a child to another man while I was married to him. And she was just broken and she didn't know what to do. And it was the most beautiful, beautiful experience to be able to point her back to just a few moments prior to our conversation. And I said, do you know how you just saw David on that stage, on his face before the Lord, asking for forgiveness for similar sin as we know? And in a moment, I forget what her name was, and I wouldn't say it anyway, but in a moment, I said to her, his sin was removed as far as the east is from the west, and yours can be in a moment as well.
Oof,
this is
wow.
so, and the message that we give to literally thousands of people every single day. We'll never fully know the outcome until eternity, but the little tiny glimpses that the Lord gives us encourage us and stir us on. But yeah, we're not, we don't do this so that we always can know the results. We know the Lord brings the results, and we may not know until eternity, but that's okay. Our part is to obey him. His part is bringing the results.
My goodness. That Whew, that stirs me up. If you're a Christian entrepreneur, you know that managing your books can be tiresome. It can take a lot of unnecessary time away from actually building the business. But my friends over at Branch Bookkeeping are here to help. Branch Bookkeeping is one of the incredible sponsors of this channel. Whether it's bookkeeping, payroll, or fractional CFO services, they help you run the numbers so that you can focus on your calling. Scan the QR code on the screen or visit their website to start your journey towards financial clarity. And the fact that all that can happen from something as simple, it's not simple because of the work that goes in, but something like art, something like a performance of, if submitted to God, can have that impact. It's just like how it's beautiful, like in one room, the Holy Spirit can move and different people speak different things to different people through one thing that is done.
Right.
That's incredible. And I mean, the thousands of people that come each and every day, how many people, like, on average come a year to these Sight and Sound productions?
We're starting to see right around 1.5 million people a year walk through our doors. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. That would be theaters.
1.5 million people.
Counting those that I think my girl with my information is right beside me. Are we starting to see about 200 nations a year tap into Sight and Sound TV-ish? Countries and territories, about 200 a year tapping into.
Oh my goodness.
And that's a whole story in and of itself, how that came about. But yeah, people are coming to us now, and we're going out to them through film, through Sight and Sound TV, through DVDs. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, McWenda.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's just, and so I do want to get the Sight and Sound TV and the movies here later on, but sure. I want to get your perspective because, again, 50 years this year, and you've been there for every part of it. You were there in the beginning. You saw it before it was anything. I'd love to hear from your perspective the early days as your dad had this vision. Obviously, he brought you and your family into it. What were those early days like? I guess I just love to hear from your perspective when you first heard about the idea, and then it start implementing. Like, what were those early stages of it?
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is the verse, "Do not despise the day of small beginnings," because everything has to start somewhere, right? And we started very, very small. I'll make this as condensed as I can. But yeah, Dad was a farmer. I don't think he even went into a movie theater. They were a very conservative family, and all Dad basically knew was farming, but he had a love for art and painting and photography. And as a very, very young person, he began taking pictures of farms so that he could take it back to his kitchen and paint that farm. And he had the picture as a reference. Wow. And eventually, after he and Mom were married, he started traveling the country, taking pictures of this beautiful nation. And that led to individuals saying, "Hey, can you put," slides is such an old-fashioned word, right? Like, slides are, right?
Yeah.
Today, people would say, "Hey, can you put a slideshow together for our church or our group of some sort?" And they did that, and they didn't just make it slides. Dad said, as a child, when he'd see slideshows, it was boring. So he wanted to make it a little bit more exciting. So they would add songs, and Mom would, read poetry and scripture and stuff like that. And it started to really grow. And before they knew it, they were all over the country showing their slideshows.
Wow.
And one year they said to themselves, what would happen if we tried to have people come to us instead of us having to go to them? So they rented out a local Bible college, which is still around, Lancaster Bible College. And they rented out an auditorium there for the summer to see if people would come and see the slideshows on a big screen. And it actually worked, and people came. And that was what gave them some money, and the idea to say, well, what if we built a theater? So that led to our very first theater, which we no longer have. We sold it to a church right down the road from where I sit today. And it was Living Waters Theater. And it was built 100% just to show Dad's slideshows. But Dad's super creative, and over the years, he would start adding little tiny nuggets of things that, we built a stage, and he'd stick my sisters and I on the stage, and I don't know, we were dancing eggs at Easter and dancing trees at Christmas, and then we started adding in a few cousins and neighbors, and one thing led to another. You've said this several times today, I think even when you prayed about our steps. Maquenda, it seriously is that, I don't want to say simple, but honestly, that's the word I'll use. It is steps. It is saying, okay, we have a slideshow. Now we're going to get a theater. Now we're going to show the slideshow. Now we're going to add this, and this. It has all just been, I'd say, steps of obedience. As humans, we love miles, right? We want to know what's the next mile, but God says he'll give us the next step. So it just was one thing leading to another very organically, and all kinds of shows in the early days that were, I'd say, kind of really not all biblical. He would take holidays and, mix in some holiday truths about, if it was Easter, the death and resurrection of Jesus, but it was also some Easter bunny stuff hopping around on the stage as well. And that led to our first full-blown biblical production called Behold the Lamb, and that opened in 1988. And I believe that was the moment where Sight and Sound truly landed on the map, and we started seeing buses come, and and then eventually built a bigger theater in 1991 at the spot where I am sitting now. So it has been obedience to the Lord, one step at a time, never imagining in a million years where the Lord was taking us. And maybe if the Lord tarries 50 years from now, we'll look back and feel like we weren't doing all that much now. I don't know. We don't know in the store. We have no idea. We have no idea.
Yeah. My goodness. That is so inspiring. And I knew some of that story, but I didn't know all the full pieces, because I've been to that theater where Living Waters was. And it's a good size, but it's pretty small. I mean, comparative to like where you're at now, it's very small. But the fact that it started like just in little theaters and halls and churches, and then just grew. And again, for context for people, we'll show images of it. But like, I think the main theater sits 2,000, 2,500, something like that.
Over 2,000 seats here and in Branson. So, on a given day, if we have like a 3-show Saturday, we'll be seeing 6,000 people here and 6,000 people in Branson all in one day.
My goodness. And
Pretty wild.
It's wild. And just the fact that, and we talk about it here a lot on the show of, it talks about that, man makes his plans, but the Lord orders his steps. And the Lord doesn't order our thinking. Like, he orders our steps. And it's like, I have found there's can be a lot of people who, struggle with procrastination, and kind of it's guised in, we're just trying to get it right, or we want to be there. Let's say there is the theater, but not willing to take just the steps that is necessary to get to there. But it's like, hey, if you just took a step, this is encouraging me. It's like, hey, like, you don't know what your steps are leading towards and how God are ordering it. And, it's like the adage of there's a forest in the acorn, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like there's something in the seed of it, but our job is to keep taking steps. His job is to order them. And I just think that is beautiful for any entrepreneur watching, any leader watching that's starting something from the ground up. I actually would even love to hear, I guess, from your perspective too, Was, what it is now, was that ever in your family's mind? Like, could you see that and that's what you were moving towards? Or was it just like, hey, we're just doing this thing now and we'll just take the next step as they come? Like, I'd love to hear kind of your, was this in your mind's eye when you guys started, or what you're seeing today?
No, not at all. It's kind of funny because, yeah, like, no, not at all. It is literally, and it was literally, you just do the next thing. You just do the next thing. It wasn't like there was this goal to one day have a theater halfway across the country, or have a goal of one day having, a Sight and Sound TV. I mean, I would say maybe a few years prior to Sight and Sound TV being launched, it was a concept. But yeah, I will share with you later how that came to be, because it's a pretty cool story. I think there was, at times concepts like Sight and Sound TV, but it wasn't like from day one, mom and dad sat down and said, one day we want to have a TV, one day we want to be in another state, one day we want to be doing movies. Not at all. And I think that's what stirs me to share with your audience, because going back to steps, right? It's great to have vision, and it's great to bullet out things that you'd love to do in life. But I love that verse you just mentioned, because so many times we can bullet out what we want, and God may be thinking this, And so the key that we have found is seek the Lord, seek the Lord, seek the Lord, seek the Lord, because it is Him and Him alone that will order our steps. And we have found that the most primary thing we can do is to seek Him and listen to Him, because He always shows us the correct way. We say this all the time as a family. Listen, we have over 900 employees. Every single one is incredible, creative, amazing, and capable. So there is a bazillion things we could do, but we don't want to do just what's good. We want to do what is God. And that makes all the difference. We know there's a lane He wants us in, and we don't want to start getting outside of that lane, even though we could. We could do, like I said, a bazillion things with these incredible teams that we have, and they are amazing. But we want to stay right where He wants us to be and do right what He wants us to do.
Oh my goodness! Oh, I love that so much. I think that it's funny. I talked to my dad recently, and we were talking. He said, McQuenda, he said, the Holy Spirit is the strategy, and he just kept saying that, and he said that over the years of just like exactly what you said. If you just seek Him, and seek Him for direction, like that, Jesus said Himself. One of our pillars here at Faithustle is being Spirit-led. And like Jesus Himself said, I don't do anything I don't see the Father doing. And that's why He spent so much time alone, because He's like, I got to get these instructions of what to do. Like, I'm not trying to do anything. And so to even hear, even still at this stage, if you're like, hey, like, we're not just going to make a decision just because it maybe feels lucrative or just because we think there's an opportunity here. No, if God's not leading us, we're not doing it. At 900 employees, that's amazing. That is still the core of what makes Sight and Sound great. Which I think so, because I don't think you can do it another way and still see the miracles and still see those stories of breakthrough of like, even having the discernment of like, hey, we need to put this show on, because you guys rotate shows throughout the year. Hey, we need to put this show on. You have no idea. Okay, yeah, that show's going to speak to that family, that person. Just all of it is so intricate of how God moves. But I think that is just, honestly, it's encouraging that, hey, like, even 50 years later, the strategy is still the same. It's like, hey, we seek the Lord. I think that's amazing.
It is amazing.
I'd love to hear, and we talked about this you talked about this earlier, about a spirit of excellence that you guys have, which is just, it's evident. You guys hire some of the best. You train some of the best actors, singers. I remember I had, I think I was 17. I got to go behind the scenes with your son. I still remember this, and he was showing me like some of the tech behind the stage, and like you guys were doing stuff that was still mind blowing to me at the time. Like you had these 3-story sets, and they would move on their own, like GPS coordinates, and I'm like, what is this? Like so many incredible, like just the excellence and just in every capacity. I've never been to a show, and there's never been a moment where I'm like not blown away by the hospitality, not blown away by any part. Low key, my favorite part is the honey roasted almonds that y'all have in the front, and walnuts. Those are personally my favorite. But like, this actually is the cinnamon. It's the cinnamon almonds.
Yeah.
But all parts of it are incredible. I guess what is the core that makes up that spirit of excellence? And if someone's watching, like they want to implement that in their business, they want to implement that in what they're building, what are things that you guys put in place of like, okay, this is going to make sure we maintain this standard of excellence?
Mm-hmm. Well, I really do think it comes back to biblical principles for us. I think God desires believers to do things. I believe we should be leading the way with excellence, not following, right? We should be leading. And far too long, believers have followed and not led. And when, as we've been talking, you do things under the direction of the Lord and the Holy Spirit, He calls us to that excellence. We have to find this, I guess I say sweet spot, because there's times, again, good ideas versus God ideas, that because our teams are so great, they might have a tendency to even take things that, how do I want to say this? We always want to be excellent, but what we don't want to do is become not good stewards. I think that's how I want to say, right?
Yes.
So it's this sweet spot of being a good steward of what God has entrusted to us and being people of excellence. But there is a sweet spot to find in that, right? Because you don't want to spend money in a manner that maybe doesn't make sense or wouldn't edify the excellence as much as we think it would. So we believe that we do everything with all of our heart as unto Him. And when you do everything with all of your heart unto Him, excellence, I believe, is the result. We don't believe in sloppy. And I will say, I think you touched on this, with almonds or whatever. We do not believe in any way, shape, or form that it's just the show that should be excellent. We want, from the moment people pull in our parking lot, we want our traffic people to be excellent. We want the people serving the cookies to be excellent. It has got to be everybody, and we're all on board with this. And not just excellent, again, I'll say what I did at the very beginning, not just excellent in, we have good cookies or we have good parking. It's the spirit behind the people as well, too. How people are treated when they're here. That matters to us more than anything. If people come and see a great biblical show, but didn't feel like they were treated well, what's the end result of that? It has to be all of it coming together. Clean restrooms, it matters, right?
Yes.
Food, it matters. And so every single thing we put our hand to, we want it to be done right. We want people to feel loved and honored and cherished and valued while they're here. And so whether that is in a practical way, we give them a good hot dog or whatever, right? Or we pray for them. I mean, our staff in concessions often has that opportunity to pray for a guest. It's just wild. And so we're always looking for an opportunity. But at the end of the day, we want every single piece of this ministry to be excellent, to make people feel loved and cherished and honored while they're here, because every human is worthy of that.
One of the hardest things about being a Christian entrepreneur is doing it alone. It's hard for us to find the right community. You either have your church community or your business community, but rarely do those things mix. And the future of your business is solely tied to the relationships that you surround yourself with. That's why we created the Faith Hustle Network. It's designed for kingdom entrepreneurs to get in community together. We have two different options. We have a free option and we have a private paid community. And each of these communities is designed to get you in the right spaces with the right conversations so that you can build your business God's way. We do weekly calls with 7, 8-figure kingdom business owners teaching about marketing and branding and sales and systems so that you can build your business on the right foundation. We do Bible studies and prayer meetings to support one another and encourage each other's journey. Not to mention, you get access to our monthly events that we do here in the Dallas area and soon in other cities. You don't have to be isolated as a Christian entrepreneur. The community you've been looking for is only a click away. We can't wait to see you get in community and build business God's way together. I love that, like you said, it's not just the mechanics of excellence, it's the spirit of it and the heart of it, that every person in every place, they are representatives of what you're carrying. Because like you said, like if someone watches a show and it's like tells the gospel but are mistreated by the parking team or by the greeters or by the consent, it's like, hold up, it's not a full witness. It's like everybody's hands on deck. And I think that honestly, I would say that is a sign of great leadership when you give ownership to your, it's like, hey, you are ministers. Like if you're in the parking lot, you're a minister. If you're concessions, you're just as, I mean, the fact that someone in concessions feels that they are so much a part of the team and part of the story of all these people coming in, that they're like, hey, I'm going to take a moment. I'm going to pray for you right now. Like that is amazing. And that, I mean, that's painting a vision where other people can get around. Our church, the church I go to here in Texas, we don't call our members, we call them owners. Mm-hmm. That members are entitled, but owners have responsibility. So it's like, no, that person, they're crying. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna talk to them, and I'm gonna have a moment to minister to them. Or I see this thing's not right, or like you said, the bathrooms. Like, okay, I'm gonna do my part. Why? Because like it all matters, and I think that is beautiful, just culture value that anyone can have in any part of. You can be in real estate, you can be in whatever experience. If you're interacting with people, it's like every part speaks, every part ministers, and I just love that. And I think, I honestly wish more churches thought that way. To be honest with you, because it's like, hey, like every part plays its role. And I just think that's beautiful.
I often give the story to our front of house teams this way. I say, have you ever been in the hospital? You ever need a surgery? I have had many times. And while I'm really, really, really grateful for a good surgeon, knows what he's doing, I'm equally as grateful for the nursing staff, because they're going to break my stay, right? So I often say it's the show that's going to do the surgery, right? It's going to be the Holy Spirit moving through that production, that Bible story. But I'm telling you, if the nursing staff doesn't give good care while they're in the surgery room or whatever, right, you're going to have a terrible experience. And boy, do I have some stories, of great hospital stays and terrible. And there's so much that falls to those caretakers, right? And so really what you're even saying about the church is we're all there as caretakers. We're all there to take care of one another. Let the surgery happen, maybe from the platform or whatever, but a lot of care is needed to all of us as human beings. I agree with you.
Oh my God. I love that. It all speaks. And that's a beautiful way of showing it. Because, like, that can add to distress. That can add to all unnecessary things that don't need to transpire. If we can, make that, even when we do our events, and we're always trying to get better, always trying to, but, part of it is like, hey, we want as soon as someone walks in, to one of our networking events, that they feel loved as soon as they walk in the door. we usually have like a tunnel that people come in and we just celebrate them. And, we have connectors to make sure people are, are connecting with people who they might not know. Like, we're doing the best we can to make sure everyone feels seen and loved. And all of that speaks so that when the talking portion happens, okay, their heart's already open. It's like we've been massaging their heart for a second, like we've just been warming them up, and then by the time, like you said, the surgery happens, it's like, okay, the soil's already ready. And I think that's a beautiful, beautiful display. Okay, I do want to transition here because I will say this one thing I am so impressed by just from afar is that, again, 50 years in, to do anything good, anybody can do anyone can do something good once, but doing it 50 years and then innovating over the years is so incredible. I mean, you guys transition, and I love to talk about this. You went from just the live productions, and then you started Sight and Sound TV, which is this on-demand experience for those. And now you said you have 200 nations represented. I'd love to hear the backstory of what led to that, what's been some of the fruit of that, and why did you feel it was necessary to, to not just have the stage, experience in person, but translating that by video to stream and to have in different countries around the world.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is one of my favorite stories to share, so thank you for asking. Like I said, we had batted the idea around of a TV platform for some time. But as we know, that historic year 2020, when
Yes.
the world closed down, so were we. We had just launched our premiere of Queen Esther. And literally, it was the day of our premiere that everything started to come down of like, everybody has to close, blah, blah, blah. So I remember meeting in an office here at the theater, and we were like, okay, let's close for a week. We can do that and cancel all the people for a week. We had a very full year. I don't know if it was, I don't know how full we were, but we had a very, very, year that looked like it was going to be gangbusters. So we're sitting in this office going, well, we'll just close for a week. Well, little did we know, as none of us knew, right, that we would be closed for almost 6 months that year. It was pretty intense. And without going into a lot of detail because of time, it was like this thing of like, wow, we are so out of control. We can't make any decisions for ourselves. We're not allowed to be open. We were sending refunds out to customers left and right, and it was in the natural very scary. And it was through that time where some of our team was like, well, is this the time? If people can't come to us, should we go out to them, right? And so my dad often says this, and I think it is a profound statement. So maybe if no one hears anything else today, hear this. Often what feels like a huge setback is a God set up. Okay, that is just a profound statement, because COVID to us felt like it could be the door of closing, right? We didn't know if we'd make it. But through that, Sight and Sound TV was launched. And in 2020, the gospel went out through various ways. TBN streamed, I believe it was Jesus that year. We had more ministry that year than any other ministry year we had ever had.
Wow.
And through that really difficult time, obviously we did eventually open to very scattered people being allowed. They weren't allowed to sit close to each other and all the things that we all know. But through that setback was God's way to set us up to go into all the world with Sight and Sound TV. And I just think these are the things that as believers, every single one of us today could name a problem, right? We could name, we're going through this, right? But when we have faith to look back and see what the Lord has done through other difficult seasons, time and time and time again, Makwenda, I can say what felt like a setback was merely a setup by God to take us further and deeper and more impact. It's the same with, we had a devastating fire here in 1997. We lost our entire theater in one day. Again, living on the top of the mountain, ministry was going great. And in one day we had a fire and lost it all. And yet looking back, I'll never say God caused the fire, but he certainly used it. I will say that. And we now have a theater. If we were still in that other theater that was called the Entertainment Center, we would not be able to even close do the level of productions that we're doing today. It was a smaller theater. It wasn't our first theater, Living Waters. It was our second theater, but still it was on a smaller scale, and God knew. So another story of a huge setback, but it was all in God's plan for a setup, which is now the ability to do the scale and the size of productions that God had in mind for us. So it's something we all need to remember every day as we face these various trials, right? Life isn't easy, even as a believer. It's not easy. It's blessed, but it's not easy, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
it's so important to look back on the times that God made a way, paved the way, brought the answer, and it gives us faith for whatever we're going through now. It gives us faith for whatever mountain we may be facing tomorrow or next week. We don't know those things, but when we live in that faith of remembering what he's done, it gives us faith to say, and he can do it again.
Wow. Praise God. What a story. And obviously, like you said, the majority of what Sight and Sound was in-person experiences. So yeah, that's a huge hit. And I mean, I know a lot of businesses that have to pivot, and their businesses look so much different now, and they run more efficiently, or maybe they found a new vertical. And I think, God's opportunities are disguised in challenges. And, sometimes the best thing God can do is shut a door, or make it clear that, hey, there's another way where, we could easily just complain, but God's like, no, I want to open up, a new way for you to reach people. I think that's just an incredible mindset that your father has, and he's passed down to your team of like, hey, like, yeah, this may be a setback, but God's setting something up that we can't see, and his purposes will always prevail. Before we close here, I love all of this. This has been so, like, I'm getting inspired. I'm just like, oh my goodness, I needed every minute of this. You guys recently stepped into movies. So you went from the live productions, TV, and now like theaters. And actually, I saw the Christmas movie, or it was around the holiday times in the theaters, and it was excellent. It was so good. I think that was a few years back, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But you have a new one out, Great Awakening.
Yes.
Beautiful. And I can't wait to. I love to hear the story behind it. I love to even hear the story of what moved you guys to go into the movie theaters and to create different films. Again, not just on stages, but creating movie productions. I love to kind of just hear the backstory and what the movie is about.
Yeah. Well, I'll start with the question of why. Again, it's pretty simple. We honestly felt God calling us into this new venture. I think in 2018 was when we made a decision as a board to stick our feet in the water with films. My brother-in-law, Joshua Ank, has always had a real passion for doing films, and he had a real heart to spearhead that whole arena of the ministry. And we all were in a very unified place. And one of the harder decisions, honestly, was not, are we going to do films, but what kind of films? Because all Sight and Sound to that point had done was biblical stories. And we felt this nudge from the Lord to go more of a historical route, because like biblical stories, Maquenda, our history is filled with faith pioneers, right? Imperfect people serving a perfect God and seeing profound results. We see it in the Bible. We see it in history. And when you mentioned, I heard the bells. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow was one of those who wrote the famous song, I Heard the Bells on Christmas Day, and his faith journey. And we can watch these historical movies now and produce them and be so inspired by these people's lives. So a great awakening came about in a really interesting way. Josh was leaning pretty strongly on a movie about George Washington. And again, going back to seeking the Lord, because we keep saying it's what it's all about, he decided to go away by himself for a couple days to seek the Lord and make sure that that is, what the Lord wanted. And while he was away seeking the Lord, he felt these words come to him. You have the right idea of he felt a story about liberty and freedom was what the Lord wanted. And so the Lord confirmed to him, that's the right theme, but you have the wrong George.
Oh, wow.
And so after a long series of things, it became very evident that it was not, even though George Washington is in this movie, but he's not the primary character, it became very clear that this movie was supposed to be around the life of George Whitefield, who his life began in England, and he became one of the most profound and influential preachers here to the colonies, and essentially was used in amazing, amazing ways in the life of Ben Franklin, the other founders of this nation. And in many ways, we can say, his obedience to the Lord to preach, come to America, be so passionate he'd get on his horse and he'd go from colony to colony to colony, boldly preaching the gospel. Wait till you see this movie. Can you
I can't wait.
See this movie? I need to hear your thoughts. I really do.
Oh, I love it. And I was a weird kid as a teenager. I used to read, I wasn't weird, but I used to read revival books like for fun. And there's one book called, it was like 2,000 Years of Charismatic Christianity. And it went through the First Great Awakening, the Second Great Awakening, and all these different moves that happened in the early years of America's founding. And it was fascinating. I remember George Whitefield. He would go by horse to these different places and preaching the gospel, boldly proclaiming, and seeing so many people come to Christ. And it always stirred my faith as a kid. I love that it's now getting on the big screen and getting put to life. I think that's amazing.
Yeah. So that's kind of what it's about. And it just is this very interesting relationship that he and Benjamin Franklin formed, and his influence spiritually. As we know, none of us are ever quite sure where Benjamin landed the plane spiritually, but in his famous speech, he truly acknowledges God and God involved in the affairs of man. So, that's the little nugget that, we may have some insight to, but we really don't know. But what we do know is George's profound impact on this nation and on Benjamin and on many other people in the early colonies. And I can't wait for you to see it. So we open in theaters next week, April 3rd. And,
oh my goodness.
Find a theater near you. We're so excited. We've worked so hard. Several teams have been traveling the nation. Actually, I think you knew I was just in Dallas. We had a screening down there. I wish I would have known. I just didn't. I don't think I you lived in Dallas. I would have invited you. You could have seen it.
I would have loved it. And I only lived 20 minutes away from the church. It was at Fellowship Church. Yeah, down the road. Yeah.
But we've been going all over giving pre-screenings in churches and various groups, and we've been getting a really amazing response. And our prayer is just, this is the 250th year anniversary of this nation. Could there be a more amazing time to see another great awakening? A revival, a place where we wake up from our sleep and see a following of Jesus. As never before. So that's our hope and prayer.
Come on. Well, I'm excited. I mean, what a day to release it on Good Friday. It's a perfect
Yeah,
day,
it
and
is.
I definitely will definitely get my ticket and make sure I go and watch it.
Okay.
And I'll definitely give my thoughts. But I know I'm already gonna love it because I heard the bells. I love everything that you. I've been inspired literally since I think the first time I saw a show, I think I was 13, and ever since then, I always leave inspired. I always leave encouraged. I'm a dreamer at heart, so I'm always like, man, like just seeing the intricacy and all the detail has always spoke to me since I was a kid. And just thank you for you and your family's obedience. Actually, I have a picture. I don't know if I can show it. Mr. Usherman, your father prayed over me a few years back. He laid his hands on me,
Wow.
and this was, I think, before I started Faith Hustle. And I was just praying. I just needed purpose. I just needed like something. And he laid his hands on me, and it just stirred everything. And the picture of my dad's in there praying with me, and I'll never forget it. And now, like, I mean, I wake up every day knowing that I'm doing exactly what God asked me to do, and so I'm just so grateful for your family and your investment in my life. Joshua, the president of Sight and Sound, I don't think I've even told you this. We were at your house for a New Year's party, and I think I was like the youngest person there outside of your daughter, and he told me, he said, "You need a mission statement for your life." And he told me his, and then he prophesied over me and told me mine. He said, "I think yours is to help other people's dreams come true." And I still have that as my mission statement for my life. I've kind of adapted it a little bit, but it's remained the same. And I've taught others, like, hey, you need a mission statement for your life. And so Sight and Sound has been so integral into my life. And so I'm just grateful that we have this opportunity to just share and talk. And we'll have a link in the description for people to go see the movie and everything. But just thank you for your time, and thank you for just all the years of faithfulness of 50 years. It's been such an impact in the kingdom and in my life personally. So thank you.
Thank you, Maquinda. God bless you. And it was so great having this time with you today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of the Faith Hustle podcast. We hope you felt challenged, encouraged, and equipped to walk out your faith hustle. And if you enjoyed this episode, we encourage you to subscribe to the podcast, whether you're listening on YouTube or any audio platform. As well, leave us a review. It helps us so much in our ratings so we can get the word out to more people. Each week we have these conversations with business owners who build their business God's way. And so we look forward to growing with you on your faith hustle journey. We'll see you next time.